So you've had a chance to meet one another in new groups. I hope that you'll carry these new friendships out of here and some connections. It's part of the reason we do this. I'll send an email out to everybody again with some follow-ups, or maybe Nora will. And so you'll have everybody's emails if you want to connect again, and we'll put Mr. Sennett's email on there as well so that you can connect with him. But right now is your time. We've had lots of time to talk. So what questions are on your mind for our guests? Any kind of question. Let's start with underclassmen. If there are questions from underclassmen. Yeah.
So about global citizen, I guess like I'm still trying to figure out what it means to be a global citizen, and sometimes I ask, or like sometimes I discuss with my mom about this. Like she asked me whether I want to one day maybe immigrate to the U.S. or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what that means to me, like, cause for me, if I want to immigrate here, for example, I have to abandon my citizenship in China. So what does that mean? Like, is citizenship just a piece of paper, or is, like, what's more than that? And like, if I'm first of all, I'm interested in like social justice and stuff. But then I feel like as a Chinese citizen, sometimes I feel limited in that aspect because well, our country is not democratic, and there's not really a free press. So like, how do I navigate my identity and like balance?
Yeah, what great questions. Thank you so much for kicking us off. Those are terrific questions.
Do you
Are you going to answer them all?
Resolve it all for us? I think we're all global citizens whether we like it or not. I think the issues that we face as individuals and as a country and as a planet, they're globally connected so you are a global citizen whether you like it or not. The challenges, if it's climate change or a global pandemic or income inequality or really everything we face is a challenge, I think, forces us to be global, whether we are good global citizens, whether we engage as citizens who are actively informed and want to be part of the decision making that comes with like participatory government. We don't have a global government. I kind of hope we never do. But I think we have global responsibility, and I think that binds us as citizens. And I would say you're a global citizen because you're I can tell just from hearing you talk. So you're in it. I'm giving you citizenship. I'm actually granting citizenship to all of you today. And I would say in terms of how do you navigate the storytelling piece of it, you were saying, how do I do journalism that's like from a global citizen's perspective? One thing I heard from a lot of you that I want to be super clear on is you do not need to figure this out today. You have a chance to figure things out as you go. And a couple of wide avenues I want to open for you. And I mentioned this to John, who's a photographer, but I would say the same thing to you that journalism is one way, but you can write for so many different kinds of things. You can tell stories, you can be active, you can be a global citizen, and you can be engaged, and you can work for Human Rights Watch, or you can work for Mercy Corps, or you could work for Catholic Charities, or you could work for any number of things that are out there in the world doing good, right? And they need storytellers. They need people who are really good at social media. If you have a huge social media following, you would not believe how that looks on a resume. It's really strong. If you can actually do TikTok with great ease and aplomb, and you can teach an older generation like me to do this, and they use it as a forum to communicate, you guys are gold. So storytelling, both as a discipline, in other words, thinking about it in new ways, thinking about podcasting, thinking about social media, thinking about photography, thinking about where they all converge. You as digital natives have unique skill sets that people of my generation are looking for all the time. So I think you are built, you are hardwired to succeed in the next round. We need you, right? So know that, and know there's lots of avenues, okay?
There was a question on social media back in this pocket over here. Does someone want to articulate some of the worries about social media? Yeah, okay, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think
building on the comment about social media.
Well, we were all talking about what you had said about how polarizing, how polarized our country is, and how we have these two different, very strong opinions that you hear constantly over and over again.
Yep.
And I guess, I don't know if this is necessarily what you were getting at, but I was talking about how people in my life at least that have this great distrust in the press, because I think a lot of people hold the opinion that when you're going to the press, you're going to these left-wing places where you're hearing journalism that's framed in kind of a democratic or a left-wing stance, and then you can go to the another side of the news, and then you're getting everything that's very right-wing, and those are the two opinions you're getting. And at the same time, how social media plays a role in that because all of these the different newspapers and such have to become print media instead of, digital media instead of print media, that they have to feed into this click culture and making sure that you're sparking a certain amount of outrage with your title so that people actually read your article, and making sure that the topic will feed into one of these two things so people actually want to read it. And I guess we were wondering if you had any just opinions or thoughts on how maybe the press feeds into the polarity of the country.
It's a great question, because we live in a time when, the media is as polarized as the country. And I think we live in a time where social media literally has an architecture and algorithms that are pulling us apart. So if you have a certain belief, you're being gamed every day, where you're being pushed those ideas. And you need to know that. And then it becomes an encumbrance upon us as global citizens to make sure we're seeking out other points of view. And it's become something you have to do much more actively. I would say there was a time when journalism presented a lot of different things, and it really was more robust as a centrist entity where people gathered around a few news organizations that told us a lot of different things. Now we have that is completely pixelated. Now you have to figure out where you want to go to get your information. And when you go there, it's probably going to lean one way. And if you like the way that it's leaning and you keep going there, you're going to have to really make an effort to circumnavigate your way back to some other ideas or opinions that you may not have thought of. So tremendous responsibility falls to you to seek out alternative points of view and to challenge traditional journalism to be better at presenting them, right? Do not accept anything. And I really think, I think that, Rachel Maddow and Tucker Carlson are the same problem. Neither one of them is a journalist. That some people even think they're journalists is insane. They're entertainers. They're telling you what you want to hear, and they're entertaining, and they're performing, and they're, in their own ways, they're very smart some of the time, and in their own ways, they're speaking directly to a certain audience, and in their own ways, they are profoundly ignorant of the other side's point of view. And so be the critical listener who goes down the middle and listens to everything and thinks about how you want to navigate it. That's the soul of a journalist, is to try to hear as many sides as you can. And I would say journalism has to be better. We are not good. We are not doing a good job. But Rachel Maddow and Tucker Carlson are not what I'm talking about when I talk about journalism. I'm talking about, what's your hometown paper? Are you in New York?
I'm from Westchester.
Yeah. So what's the Westchester paper? Is there Westchester Gannett or?
Yeah, something. Westchester Gazette or something like that.
But I mean, even if you think of the New York Times as your hometown
newspaper,
that's fine. Is it Western Mass? So
it would be the Wilbraham Times.
Wilbraham Times and Springfield Morning Union, right? Is that still, or Springfield Republican?
Yeah,
still there.
The Republican, yeah.
These local newspapers that are in your lives, they're places where I would argue you need to know what's going on in your community, especially when you guys venture out into the world and you start to maybe get married, have kids, get a job. I know that seems miles and miles away, and I hope it is. But when you do, you need to know things that are local. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about local journalism, and that's really broken. The big stuff is broken for the different sets of reasons I explained. But no matter where you are, you're obligated now to push harder for journalism to serve you. And sadly, you have to go out and navigate it a little bit more than you used to. Does that get at it?
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's like wonderful, and like it's good for us to be like active listener or active readers, critical readers, but like to be honest, like we're coming at this from like we're about to graduate college. Some of us are about to graduate college. Everybody in this room is in college. Like we sort of have the time and the resources to discern and like be able to like what you're saying, like the true like mission of journalism is to speak the truth. But we have the like wherewithal and the resources to like try to discern that, whereas like I think the general population, or at least part of it, doesn't. So it's like, do you think that traditional journalism has like a duty to pay like on behalf of the Tucker Carlsons or whomever else? Because I mean, like I read an op-ed in the New York Times recently, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like talking about the deplorable behavior of Republicans, and like I mean, it was very weaponized writing. It was like choosing like really derogatory verbs about Republicans, or like, you know, using words that were like proxy for evil. It's like these grand terms of like do or die. And it's like, how are people, like normal people, like supposed to like try to get by in life and like do what they're like trying to do, but also like take on the like onus of like deciding what's true and what's not. Like, don't you think that's
one way to do
job?
it is stay off the op-ed page.
Well, like,
go to the
but
news.
I have like the resources, like someone like I'm sitting in a.
But I mean this really seriously.
Okay.
What? Who knows what op-ed stands for?
Opinion editorial.
No.
Oh.
Opposite editorial. Right?
Oh.
Opposite the editorial page. So here's the editorial page. The articles that are called op-eds are opposite the editorial page. It's an environment of opinion that, I have 4 sons. Their ages are 18 to 23. I know your cohort. My sons are the sons of a journalist. I am such a geek. I used to wake up, get the papers, and I would circle things in red, and I'd be like, read this, and leave it for them in the morning before I went to work. And you know, I'd be like, things that I knew they were interested in, and I'm trying to engage with them, and even they don't get that, like, the opinion pages are for opinion.
Yeah.
The op-ed pages are for essays that are written by people not with the paper, but that they're trying to open up an opinion to. Stay in the news pages. Because in the New York Times, the news pages more biased than they used to be. They're definitely leaning more left than they ever did before, I think. But we live in a polarizing time, and they are really pretty damn close to a daily miracle. If you think about the information that's gathered, the discipline with which it's gathered, the care that goes into presenting it, and the people and the knowledge they bring to it, it's like if you read the news pages, you're gonna get really enriched and informed. Now you're getting it from a point of view. It's New York centric, it's East Coast, it's elitist, it's got a left leaning for sure, but it's really good. And the opinion pages are too shrill, and they bang around, and like you hear too many opinions. So I literally tell my kids, don't read the opinion page. You get too many opinions all the time. Stick to the news pages. That's where the action is. But you asked a really good question. Can I share your question?
Yeah.
So, and I believe if I have this right, it was, how can you tell the truth when the people funding you don't want you to tell it, or something like that?
Yeah.
It's such a good question. Remember, I run a nonprofit, right? So we have to go to funding from people like the Ford Foundation. Okay, the Ford Foundation leans way left. They're very, very progressive. We have to go to places like the Rockefeller Foundation. Also leans sort of global, but global left. Real global citizens, I would say. And we go to anywhere we can to get funding, including Facebook. So I've just said, algorithms are gaming us to polarize our country. It's destroying journalism. And here I am taking funding from Facebook, right? Like, what a hypocrite. Fair. That's why we're so transparent about our funding. We take funding from Facebook. We take funding from George Soros. We take funding from the Koch brothers. My job, get as much funding as I can and keep short-circuiting it all the way around so no one owns it. Because our thing is, like, we try to really protect ourselves from any influence, and we won't take money if you want to try to influence the coverage. PBS is the same, NPR is the same. They have very strict standards that we've modeled our standards on. And they've been at it a really long time. And if you have those standards and you stick to them and you fight like hell for them, you can actually navigate that. So I would say, check it out, verify, investigate, make sure you think that's really happening. But also maybe as you look into it, allow yourself the possibility that you go, whoa, I trust this actually. I feel like this news organization's gotten funding from the left and the right and in the middle, but they're trying hard and I feel like they're hitting it. I would challenge you to really dig in and see what you think. And know that standards are pretty strict in the good news organizations. So the big thing is, don't let anyone ever use the word media with you. It doesn't mean anything anymore. What is media? That includes Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow and everything in between, including a guy with a blog in his basement or some person who's doing, some citizen journalism, which is really important. Remember, they gave an honorary Pulitzer to the girl, I think you would say, in Minneapolis, who photographed George Floyd being choked to death. Like, that was done by a citizen journalist. I would call her a global citizen. Media means nothing. Good journalism means something, and decide where you think you're finding it, and then really dig in and make sure it's really there. And if it's there, stay with it. And ultimately, once you do get that first job, all right, maybe second job, pay for it. It's not going to be free. People think journalism will be free. There was this famous quote about information on the web wants to be free. Well, journalists want to eat. You can't get it for free. So if you fall in love with the New Yorker, pay for it. If you fall in love with the Wall Street Journal, subscribe to it. If you listen to NPR every day, because it's like your parents used to listen to it and you can make fun of it, but if you really want to know what's going on, it actually can really inform you. If you love the New York Times and you listen only to the daily podcast, it's like all you'd really need to hear, but subscribe. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So there's an ecosystem out there that you have to be active citizens in, and you have to engage, challenge, and push. The reason I mentioned Facebook, as well as Rockefeller and Ford, is everyone challenges us, and they should, and I welcome it. How can you take money from Facebook? And then I say to them, the same was true of how could you take money from Ford? He was a fascist. Outright, Ford was ultimately espousing fascism. Yet his foundation is way left. The Rockefellers, are you kidding me? Talk about income inequality. The inequities they created in our country, the structural inequities they created are profound, yet we get money from them to look at income inequality. Like, I believe in redemption for these incredible, powerful forces of wealth. They've messed things up quite a bit, and some of them want to try to give back in a way to try to maybe ameliorate their conscience, I don't know. But I know one thing is that tremendous wealth fuels a lot of great journalism. It fuels a lot of great social justice movements too. Human Rights Watch gets money from all those forces I just mentioned. It's a profoundly cynical time we live in. And embedded in one of your other questions was I think even another layer of cynicism, which I get. And again, I have sons who express the same thing. And I love the phrase you used, weaponizing fact, or like weaponizing language. Another thing that's happening is, I think there's a lot of forces out there that are weaponizing doubt. And they want you to shrug your shoulders and say, there is no truth, like we can't believe anything. I swear to God, that is an intention of corporate America. That is an intention of those who want to roll us over and do what they want. And the tobacco industry, we now know, actively funded fraudulent science to create questions around whether or not smoking is bad for you. They knew it caused cancer. They just needed to question it, so then they created plausible questions that become a weaponization of doubt, and they bought more time, and then they got you all addicted to cigarettes again. And I can't believe how many young people smoke, including some of my sons, and I could kill them. And I used to smoke, so I know. But like, they are weaponizing doubt. We know big oil, for a fact, understood climate change at least a generation ago. They covered it up, and they started to fund science that could make it a question. And suddenly journalists are forced into a completely false narrative, which is to present two sides of climate change. There aren't two sides of climate change. There's the side of science, and that's it. So you don't have to, because there's a funded study that says climate change may not be real and it's funded by big oil, that doesn't mean journalists are bound to have to present that point of view. We have to be tough, and we have to steal that weaponization of doubt away and look for facts. But you as citizens have to, don't give in to cynicism. There's too much that we need to do as citizens of the world. Do not fall into it. It's really easy right now. And I can feel from your questions, you're asking these great questions. Keep asking the questions, but ask them in the direction of heading toward how do we change things. I know you're doing that, I can tell. And journalism is, you got it in your bones, so I hope you do it.
Yeah, let's take other questions. For those interested in following up on the story of the sort of industries burying the truth around cigarettes and stuff, Naomi Oresti's book, Merchants of Doubt, is a classic.
Yeah,
she's a professor at Harvard in the history of science, and she's a person to read on that. What other questions do we have from other people?
Couple questions I heard, and bring them forward if you have them, but there are a lot of questions about career. Well, like, how do I get a career start? How do I navigate a career? And it's a tough time to do that, for sure. But this is a bit of a commentary directly to, this isn't even speaking to a generation. This is speaking to those of you who missed a graduation for COVID, or who missed the parties in freshman year that you should be going to, or had to do Zoom classes when you wanted to be with your friends and be in class. You guys are a couple things. One, you are uniquely resilient. So you should know I'm in awe of your cohort, and I have so many people, because through my sons, who are big, they really love to party. They have great friends. They bring them to the house. We love them. And they have really diverse friends, and I love their world. I'm in awe of you guys, all of you who have experienced that. You should know, I think, you all get a pass for a while. You have some good fun to catch up on, and give yourselves the time to do that. Life is too short. The jobs are gonna be there. And I don't just say this to you lightly, I say this to my sons as well. Learn as much as you can here. Don't get pre-professional. It's a curse of a liberal arts college when it gets too pre-professional. And one of the things I love about BC is there are things like that beautiful Irish Studies library, or this Global Studies program right here, where you're in this beautiful setting. You have opportunities here that are so extraordinary. Take every one of them and learn, and that's what you need to do. And the careers are gonna be there, you're gonna be able to navigate, you're gonna figure it out. But something I used to say all the time is find your passion. And I never say that anymore. I've actually grown to try to cancel that out of my speaking, because there is no such thing as finding your passion. It sounds like it's one of those stained glass window things that, like the light comes down upon you and you decide, I have a passion. And it's literally like a religious thing. It's not like that. It's find something you enjoy doing. And if you really enjoy it, work hard at getting good at it. And when you get good at it, you're gonna realize there's so many layers of that. You're gonna keep going. And when you're there and you wake up one day, you realize, hey, that's my passion. But it's not something that will descend. It's something you find by navigating it. So give yourselves time, get out there and find something you love to do and you enjoy doing. And that's a really, that opens up a lot of windows of opportunity for you. So that would be my sense of the career thing. It's a tough time to get a job in journalism. But as I've shared, there's a lot of other ways to tell stories and to do this kind of work. So keep open and keep learning.
We're gonna wrap up in like 3 minutes here. Let's take one last question then. Yeah.
So it seems like that you've kind of described some ways to navigate a more like an increasingly complex and collapsing journalism landscape.
Mm-hmm.
One of those being that it's sort of on the reader themselves to diversify what they read so they don't end up bathing in sort of this confirmation
Yeah.
bias. and the other being this putting the responsibility more so on the journalists themselves and buying into this nonprofit model. Do you see the Jeff Bezos model as sort of a viable alternative forward for journalism as well, because he's proven that corporate buyouts of news organizations is capable of reviving a news company like he has done with the Washington Post, or does that compromise the free part of the free press aspect of it?
Doesn't it feel like we all work for Jeff Bezos? I would say Jeff Bezos represents a form of ownership that is age old. I mean, like the Rothschilds supported great artwork, and this whole idea of like extreme wealth empowering those who want to do things that don't necessarily make money, like theater and art and journalism. That's not new. That's been around a long time, and that sort of patronage form of supporting the arts or supporting journalism is age old. So we can be cynical about it, but you can also recognize like it funded things like the Mona Lisa, or it funded Shakespeare. You know, it's funded some pretty great things. And I feel like the Washington Post has such good editors and reporters. They're pretty brutal about making sure they cover Bezos aggressively. It's when they stop doing that I really worry. For right now, I'm keeping my eye on them. Like, how are they doing with that? How are they doing? We got to be critical. We got to be hard-edged, but not allow ourselves to succumb to cynicism if it's not worthy. Like, give them a shot. Let's see what happens. Right now, Washington Post is doing amazing journalism. The journalism they're doing in the Ukraine is incredible. The journalism that they do covering the tech sector is aggressive and hard-hitting, and it goes after Amazon as much as anyone else. The reporters I know there, if they ever felt like they were being blocked in a story, they'd quit. You know, or it would get found out they got blocked in a story and they'd get hired by the New York Times. So have a little faith that there's good people out there trying to do good work, and then keep your eye on that formula of the rich guy funding a newspaper, and let's see where it takes us. But right now, I met with an editor at the Washington Post last weekend, and she told me the Washington Post has hired 800 people in the last year. They're growing, they're going crazy. And I think Bezos gets it that our democracy will not function without trusted, local, discernible facts. If we don't have them, I don't think we have a democracy. And I think rich people are getting it. Big, powerful titans of industry are like, this whole capitalism thing's treating us pretty well. Maybe we ought to keep it going. And you know, I don't think it's that different from the way Ben Franklin framed the importance of a free press and the essence of our Constitution. I think it is really about holding on to what we believe, which is participatory government requires active citizenship and good local information. And journalism is right there at the foundation of that idea. And you gotta fight like hell to make sure it stays there. In your own lives and in your pursuit of journalism, if you get it, or as citizens, making sure that we kind of work hard to get those discernible facts, those different points of view that make up the whole.
Yeah, thank you for the work you've done over
Thanks.
many years, both as a truth teller and as someone who enables truth tellers in the world, and for modeling the kind of global citizenship that I think a lot of us aspire to. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You forgot to ask me about
We have a closing story?
Porg O'Malley is worth 2 minutes, okay?
All right, 2 minutes.
Is that okay? You guys have been here a long time. And he's such a global citizen. So that guy who served me a pint is, how tall would you say he is? 6'5", 6'6"?
Yeah.
Big, tall Irish guy with a great Irish accent. And truthfully, alcohol sort of ravaged him. He became very much a self-aware alcoholic, and he's in recovery. But he began to take his alcoholism and his struggles with it. And if you've ever known anyone who has been ravaged by alcohol, there's a process, a 12-step process of recovery that people go through. And Porig had this amazing insight that his alcoholism reminded him of the addiction to violence that he saw in Northern Ireland and that he saw in other conflict zones around the world. And he began to talk about the need to get not addicted to violence. So he used his own life experience, a disease he had, alcoholism, and his journey to try to recover from it. And his work as he started to go out and become a journalist himself. And he began to really see how he put all these things together. And there is an amazing documentary called Peacemaker, and I'm actually one of the voices in it. And it's about Porig's life, and I tell the story of those pints of Guinness. And Porig, 20 years later, I'd forgotten about Porig, and suddenly I realized, this guy's in Northern Ireland, this guy's in Iraq, and we start crossing paths. And that full circle moment, 17 years old, having a pint of Guinness at lunch from a cool guy who gave it to me, and seeing this politicized environment, it's because I was alert, I was just staying open to the people around me and to the experiences I was having. And I know you'll do that, but they come around, they really do. So Porig now is a very active intellectual, and he became very close to Nelson Mandela. He wrote a book about one of Mandela's chief advisors, and he got to know Nelson Mandela. And he very famously was challenged by Nelson Mandela, bring those lads from Northern Ireland, your home country, bring them to me, but here's the deal, you gotta bring both sides. So he goes to them and they say, I'll go, but I won't go with the other side. And he said, okay, just come. He went to the other side and said, I'll go, but I won't come if those other guys go. I told them all they would be the only ones. And he got all the sides on one plane, and they couldn't leave. And he made it really clear, if you want to see the winner of the Nobel Prize, then you're all coming together, or you don't come at all, and you can walk off the plane. And they all went, and many people credit it with the start of the peace process. And sometimes when you're 17 years old, or your age, you come across someone who slides a pint of Guinness or shares a story with you, and be open to the fact that many years later they could be game changers. They could be true global citizens, and they're all around you. That's my point, is like, global citizenship is here, it's around you, it's in everyone's lives. So just stay open. It could come from an unpredictable corner of your life, like a bar called the Plow and Stars in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I also told you I'd give you the room name, and I forgot the name of this building. It's where where you get the social work degrees,
Yeah,
social sciences.
We're good in 121.
McGuinn, thank you.
We're good in
McGuinn, 121, 7 p.m.
7
Please
p.m.
come.
on
I'd
Thursday.
really love you to be
All right.
there. Thank you
guys so much for coming out.